Good evening and thank you for joining us. The Faculty of Medicine of the University of Hong Kong has developed a skincare cream with plant-based compound formula that can block eczema-inducing bacteria at the source. HKU says while it can control the condition, it doesn't represent a complete cure. Being one of the common skin ailments in Hong Kong, eczema inflicts patients with persistent itchiness and skin swollenness. The Department of Microbiology of the Faculty of Medicine of the University of Hong Kong has been studying the main causes of eczema recurrence since 2017. Its researchers found that current therapies can only temporarily inhibit inflammation or indiscriminately sterilize it, and long-term use can cause skin thinning and even antibiotic resistance. Developing a cream with local manufacturers, the research team extracted from a variety of plants to neutralize the virulence of Staphylococcus aureus, turning it from a harmful state to a harmless coexistence. This helps block the toxins from itching, inflammation, and damaging the skin barrier. The team stresses that the cream is not a medicine that can completely cure eczema, but a form of skincare. According to the questionnaire responses, most patients who try the cream experience a significant reduction in itching and pain 3 to 4 days after use. Part of the research team, Professor Yun Kwok-yung, says they are studying the possibility to turn the plant-based formula into medical products. But for plant-based moisturizing creams to become formulated drugs, they still need to undergo phase 1 to 3 clinical trials with millions of dollars of investment. Hong Kong's population has hit 7.51 million by the end of 2025, up 10,000 year-on-year. The government says the population growth was pushed by various measures on talent attraction and labor importation. Samantha Lee has more.
As of the end of last year, Hong Kong's population has grown to 7.51 million. The number represents a 0.1% increase, or about 10,000 more people compared to 2024. Births plunged to a record low of 31,100 last year, a drop of about 5,000. With 50,000 deaths recorded over the same period, the city saw a natural decrease of 18,900 people. The population growth is mainly driven by new arrivals. This includes 25,000 people moving to Hong Kong on one-way permits, while other categories saw a net inflow of about 4,000. A government spokesperson noted that the overall increase is because of various talent and labor schemes, which drew people from across the globe and offset the impact of the natural population decline. The government's $20,000 newborn baby bonus is about to end by the end of this year. While the city continues to face a shrinking birth rate, lawmaker Nixie Lam believes simply handing out cash is not enough. A one-off payment, whether it's $20,000, $40,000 or even $80,000, is not a long-term solution. You can't boost birth rate with just one measure. The city needs a comprehensive plan to understand why young people are hesitating to start families, said Lam. She suggested increasing child tax allowance and expanding child care services to encourage citizens to have children. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
Customs handled more than 38,000 cases last year, marking an increase of about 20% year-on-year. The bulk of them were illicit tobacco-related offenses. A 60-year-old inbound traveler found to conceal 201 duty-not-paid cigarettes, or around 10 packs of cigarettes, in his trousers. He was sentenced on Wednesday to 4 weeks imprisonment and fined $1,500. Unveiling its enforcement figures for last year, Hong Kong Customs says around 75% of its over 38,000 cases involved illicit cigarette-related offenses. Over 28,000 cigarette-related arrests were made, up more than 30% from the previous year. Authorities said the surge was linked to crime groups recruiting travelers, with some parents even exploiting cross-boundary students to drip-feed the illicit cigarettes into Hong Kong through repeated small batches.
The increased duty rate would inevitably give higher incentive for passengers bringing into Hong Kong excessive cigarettes.
Notably, around $340 million worth of precious metals were seized, doubling the haul than the year before. The bulk of them was smuggled gold. Customs has not only set up these physical inquiry counters at various control points featuring Putonghua, English, and Cantonese interfaces. It also extended its AI upgraded services in Q1, hoping to make the service more accessible to visitors and locals. Customs signed a memorandum of understanding with Taobao and Tmall to prevent prohibited and controlled items from entering Hong Kong through online shopping platforms.
By signing these agreements, we also have the e-commerce platforms to have a better screening and filtering mechanism so that those goods which are non-compliant with local legislation and regulations can be taken away from their platform.
Customs is not ruling out the possibility to sign similar MOUs with other mainland and international e-commerce platforms in future. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi clashed combatively with Democrats at a congressional hearing on Wednesday. With victims of Epstein seated behind her in the hearing room, Bondi defended her department's handling of the files and accused Democrats of using them to distract from U.S. President Donald Trump's successes. But Democrat Dan Goldman then asked the victims to stand and raise their hands if they had tried to speak with the Department of Justice and got no response.
How many of you have reached out either individually or through a lawyer or representative to offer to provide testimony and evidence? All of them. And of those of you, all of you who have reached out, how many of you were denied or ignored by the Department of Justice? All of them. And despite the shameful and despicable efforts by Ms. Bondi and her department to intimidate you, how many of you are still willing to speak to the Department of Justice? All of them. Well, Ms. Bondi, it looks like you have some more witnesses to talk to. Gentlemen, this time has expired. And I yield back.
Bondi, for her part, repeatedly deflected questions from Democrats, responding instead with attacks and sought to cast them as disinterested in violence in their own districts. U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright arrived in Venezuela for a first-hand assessment of the country's oil industry. Wright met with acting President Delcy Rodriguez at the Miraflores Presidential Palace in Caracas. Speaking after the meeting, Wright said the U.S. wants to see Venezuela's people and economy free. He added that U.S. President Donald Trump is committed to transforming the relationship with Venezuela. Wright also claimed that China has already bought some of the crude oil from Venezuela offered by the U.S. According to two sources speaking on condition of anonymity, the Pentagon allowed U.S. Customs and Border Protection to use an anti-drone laser earlier this week. They said that was why the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration suddenly closed the airspace over El Paso, Texas on Wednesday. Yanni Rao has details.
The events began as the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration announced it was shutting down all flight traffic over the city on the U.S.-Mexico border for 10 days, stranding some travelers. However, the closure ended up only lasting a few hours. U.S. President Donald Trump's administration said it stemmed from the FAA and Pentagon working to halt an incursion by Mexican cartel drones, which are not uncommon along the southern border. One of the sources said a laser was deployed near Fort Bliss without coordinating with the FAA, which decided then to close their airspace to ensure commercial air safety. Others familiar with the matter said the technology was used despite a meeting scheduled for later this month between the Pentagon and the FAA to discuss the issue. While the restrictions were short-lived in the city of nearly 700,000 people, it is unusual for an entire airport to shut down even for a short time. Normal flights resumed after 7 arrivals and 7 departures were cancelled. Some medical evacuation flights also had to be rerouted. Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois, a former U.S. Army helicopter pilot who serves on committees focused on aviation and the armed services, said the issue is the latest example of the lack of coordination that's endemic in this Trump administration. TV News.
Welcome back. China's top diplomat Wang Yi has embarked on his Hungary visit and held separate meetings with the country's prime minister and foreign minister in Budapest. Wang pointed out that a friendly relationship with Hungary would help forge the healthy development of China-Europe ties. He will head to Germany for the Munich Security Conference and deliver a speech at the three-day event later this week. Danny Zhou has more.
Wang, also a member of the Politburo, had conversations with Hungarian Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Peter Szijjártó, in the country's capital city. Wang noted that his trip was meant to deepen bilateral ties and expand cooperation, while expressing the belief that Hungary will stick to its long-standing friendly policy toward China. He mentioned Chinese businesses were gaining ground in investment and operations there, which have effectively contributed to economic development and improved livelihoods of Hungary. Wang added robust China-Hungary ties would promote healthy, stable development of China's relationship with the European Union. He said over the course of 70-plus years since establishing diplomatic ties, China and Hungary have always adhered to the principles of mutual respect, equality and win-win cooperation, which set an example of a new type of international relations. Wang ramped up his call on the two sides to jointly consolidate the foundation of mutual trust, deepen mutually beneficial cooperation and enhance people-to-people exchanges. This, as he urged more efforts to address the deficit in global governance. The foreign minister also underlined the success of China-Hungary relations manifests that differences in culture and social systems are not obstacles to dialogue and cooperation, and that mutual respect is the right way for countries to get along with each other. For his part, Szijjártó stated his country has consistently valued its friendship with China, highlighting China's pivotal role as a major global player as the international order undergoes a profound transformation. After the talks, Wang met with the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, with both parties vowing to advance all-round cooperation. Wang welcomes the Hungarian side to continue riding the express train of Chinese modernization, sharing opportunities and bolstering development together. Orbán expressed admiration for China's development achievements, saying Chinese enterprises have ranked first among the investors in Hungary for consecutive years and brought tangible benefits to locals. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
Most Japanese lawmakers chosen in Sunday's House of Representatives election favor explicitly recognizing the self-defense forces in the post-war pacifist constitution, according to a pre-election poll by Kyodo News. In the survey, which drew responses from 403 candidates who later won seats of the 465-member chamber, 81.1% backed a revision to Article 9 to clarify the legal status of the self-defense forces, and 83.4% favored adding an emergency clause to give the government more power in the event of a major disaster or armed attack. Meanwhile, Xinhua Agency wrote today that Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's recent rhetoric about trying to create an environment that would allow her to visit the Yasukuni Shrine exposes the intention of Japan's right wing to revive a past rooted in militarism. It said critics argue that any attempt by a sitting prime minister to visit the controversial shrine risks undermining Japan's pledges to uphold a post-war identity rooted in pacifism. The northern metropolis is set to become Hong Kong's new engine for growth. The CLP Power has set up 3 electrical substations there, which are expected to satisfy the hub's electricity needs for at least a decade. Samantha Lee has the details.
From R&D facilities, the MTR Northern Link, to future supercomputing and data centers, every major development relies on a robust power supply. To meet this demand, the CLP Power commissioned 3 substations in 2024. One is located right next to the Hong Kong Shenzhen Innovation and Technology Park, serving the park and the Lor Ma Chau Loop area. The other 2 substations are placed in Kutong North and on Ma Sik Road respectively. They are built to meet local energy demand for at least 10 years. In the past, power is usually transmitted through overhead towers in the new territories, which can be vulnerable to extreme weather. To ensure stability, all cables in these new development areas have been laid underground. Michael Lau, director of the power company, said underground cables are much less susceptible to external factors, allowing CLP to maintain high reliability. He added they have put a lot of thought into the grid design, incorporating multiple backup power sources so that even if an incident occurs, the electricity supply remains uninterrupted. Looking ahead, the CLP Power plans to build at least 10 substations in the northern metropolis. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
A 48-year-old mainland man pleaded guilty to in-flight theft, but the judge questions his frequent travels and possible premeditation and ordered the prosecution to further investigate the case. The man admitted to one count of committing an act that disrupted order on board an aircraft after he was found to have stolen a diamond ring worth about $24,000 and a bracelet valued at around $18,000. The district court judge says that the defendant worked casual jobs in the mainland, earning $3,000 a month, and questioned his purpose in traveling to Dubai. Noting that the defendant's travel frequency is more often than you and I, the judge says leniency would risk encouraging similar crimes. Sentencing has been adjourned until March 12th. Hong Kong is bracing for a travel surge this Lunar New Year, with the Immigration Department forecasting 11.38 million arrivals and departures between February 14th and 23rd. The figure marks a 16% rise over the same period last year. About 9.52 million are expected to make their trips through various land border crossings. Officials say they expect peak outbound traffic this Saturday and peak inbound flows on February 22nd. Traffic at the Lawwood Lok Ma Chau, Shenzhen Bay checkpoints will likely be heavier than others. The operational hours across all border crossings will remain unchanged throughout the festive period. There will be additional counters and channels and more frontline officers deployed to help commuters cross the boundary smoothly. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.